Hello everybody, it's Jen Scrapbena Creations. I'm excited to have 5 cards for you today using the Scrapbook and Cards Today Daffodil Days Spring card kit for 2019. So let's jump into card number 1. For the first card, I'm going to use some of the green cardstock as well as the Echo Park Spring Fling pattern paper. I cut the cardstock out using a scalloped rectangle die. And for the pattern paper, which will be our focal panel, I cut that out using a rectangle stitch die. I'm using some of the ribbon that came in the kit, and I'm going to adhere it to the upper portion of the panel. Once I get that down, I am going to add some double-sided adhesive to the back to make sure it sticks really well to that cardstock with the ribbon on the back. All of the products that I use in today's video that don't come in the kit, I will link individually in the description box below. There'll also be a lot of information posted there about the card kit in case you're interested in checking it out on your own. So I've gone ahead and I've put together the bow. I've taken a piece of the ephemera. This is a cute little tag that says "You make me happy," and it has this adorable little snail on it. I popped it up with some fun foam. I'm just trimming off some of the paper edges that weren't quite nice and clean on the edges. I'm going to use these 2 flowers. These also came in the ephemera pack. So I'm adhering them down with some liquid adhesive, and I'm just going to put those flat onto the card panel. I am going to trim this yellow one up a little bit just so I can tuck it behind that tag and it fits snugly behind there. To add some embellishments, I'm using some of the tiny heart sprinkles that come in the kit. I'm going to use one, a blue one, and I'm actually going to place it down into the center of our little snail's shell just to give it a little something extra. Once I have that done, I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the top of the tag so our bow will be the same height as the tag. And then I'm going to use some glue dots here. I just cut that in half and I'm going to adhere the bow right onto the foam adhesive. I'm going to glue this panel onto one of the card bases that was pre-made and comes in the kit. And I love how the scalloped border just leaves a little bit of white space for a nice clean edge. So there's card number 1 complete. Here's a look at card number 2. For this card, I'm using some of the yellow cardstock as well as the pattern butterfly paper, which I thought was really pretty. I'm going to pop up the butterfly pattern on some fun foam. I want a little bit of dimension for this focal panel, but not too much. So when I just want to add a little something, I use the fun foam because it's not quite as high up as a traditional foam adhesive would be. So I'm using some double-sided tape here again. This is my favorite way of adhering fun foam. I get that onto the back panel. I'll add another piece here, and then I'll adhere that down to the cardstock. Once I get that in place, I am going to start working with the little butterfly stickers that come in the kit. I love the pastel rainbow color. So I'm going to take those off the sheet here, and I'm going to use my embossing tool to add some powder. This will get rid of any of the sticky residue. I'm doing this so I can place my butterflies on my card to see where I want to place them. I know I want to use 3 of them, but I don't know exactly at this point where I want them to go or where they will fit on the card. So I'm going to use the pink one, the green one, and the blue one. And the sentiment there is from the ephemera. It's really cute. It says, "You make me smile." I thought this would be a great everyday kind of card that would just brighten someone's day. So you can see here I'm just playing with placement for a little bit, trying to figure this out. I am going to pop these butterflies up on some fun foam just in the center. And I popped the sentiment up on some fun foam, not fun foam, foam adhesive as well. To give this card a little bit extra dimension, I'm going to be curling up the butterfly sides, and I'm going to tuck this pink one right behind the sentiment, and you can see it just gives the card a little something extra. So I went ahead and edited out curling up all the sides of the butterflies, but here I'm just placing the final one on the card, and then I'm going to bring back those Doodlebug tiny hearts again, and I'm going to add 3 of those onto the butterfly pattern paper. I was trying to see if I could get them to look right by putting them on the butterflies themselves, but it just wasn't going to work out the way I thought it might in my head. So once I get this final little heart down, then I'm going to add this panel onto my card base, quick and simple with some liquid adhesive here, and that will be card number 2 complete. So moving on to card number 3, I wanted to use the pattern paper that has the little rain boots on it. So I went ahead and cut a piece of the pink cardstock out with a scallop circle. I cut some scallop borders out as well. I'm going to adhere those to the back of this flower pattern strip that I cut out. And this just gives it a little bit of extra division between the busy flower pattern and the busy rain boot pattern. So once I get this adhered, I'm going to bring in some of the Love from Lizi peel off stickers, and if you haven't seen these are amazing. I will have them linked below. I'm going to use the white ones, and I love the way this gives a finished edge to paper that you have kind of added on top of another piece of paper, if that makes sense. So this just gives you a nice clean edge, and I have a little bit of trouble with this top one, but I think I was just pulling it too tight. I'm definitely making it look more complicated than it needs to be. So this panel will need to be cut down once I get the peel off stickers on here. So I'm going to just see where I want this to go on my card panel. I do want to make sure that that bottom line of rain boots is completely visible. So when I go to adhere this down, I'm just going to line that up so it's not covering those boots. And then I'm going to trim off my edges here. I don't know what I was thinking when I had it in landscape length instead of trimming it down before I put all those pieces together, but that's okay. So now I'm going to add this card panel to my pink cardstock here, and I'm just using my ATG gun because it was beside me, but liquid glue would work just as well. So I've cut this so that there's a little bit of an edge of that pink cardstock so it will tie in with the focal panel here, which is our scalloped circle. The sentiment that I'm using says, I was made for not rainy days. I'm looking at the rain boots. I was made for sunny days. So it's kind of a play on words with all the rain boots. And I decided to cut out a few of the little rain boots. I put 2 as the focal point underneath the sentiment, and then I cut out 3 extras and just kind of put them around the card. I did pop all of those up on some foam adhesive to give them some dimension. And again, that just gives something extra to a fairly plain and simple card using only paper. So the boot wasn't laying straight over top of that little sentiment ephemera piece, so I just had to trim off that foam adhesive and then use some liquid glue to make sure that it adhered well to the top part of the boot and the sentiment. I finished that off with some Nouveau Morning Dew drops, which just leaves a nice glossy finish. And now we're moving on to card number 4. The layout for card number 4 is quite simple. I just cut out a rectangle using the stitched die again. And then the smaller panel, I went ahead and made sure to cut that out with the stitched rectangle die along the top and bottom so it had the stitch detailing. And I'm going to place this a little bit more to the left, so it's not quite centered. I did want there to be more of that blue pattern paper showing. It has daisies on it. It's really pretty. So I wanted it to show more on the right-hand side than the left. I grabbed out one of these ephemera tags and I used some of the ribbon from the kit to tie on some tails here. I didn't quite know at this point what I was going to do with the ribbon, so I left them quite long, and you can see here I'm trying to play with placement, deciding if I want to keep them long, but in the end I decide to trim them a bit more, and I thought it might be cute to kind of have them tucking over themselves, I guess. I can't really think of the best way to say that, but I end up not liking this. So you're going to see me put this together, and then by the end of the card I will have switched it. But I wanted to put one of the enamel buttons onto the card. I don't use stuff like that very often, so I wanted to make sure I put that to good use. Finishing off the card with some Nouveau drops in White Blizzard, which have some glitter in them, and you can see there that's where I finished up the tails and cut them short and just left them straight. So now we're already moving on to card number 5. I cut out a rectangle scalloped piece of vellum there, and I'm using one of the 12 by 12 pattern papers. This is from Echo Park. This is the Easter Wishes, and I'm just going to adhere that panel onto the aqua paper, which is really pretty, and then I'm going to have the vellum over top of that busy pattern paper. So the kit comes with this exclusive die that cuts out the sentiment Happy Easter from the matching stamp. So I just went ahead and put some repositionable adhesive on the back and laid that down on my stamp platform. I'm just conditioning my stamp because I haven't used it yet, and so I'm using a white eraser to do that. I'm using my Versafine Clair ink here to stamp the sentiment. This is some of the cardstock, and it has a little bit of texture to it. So I did go ahead and stamp that twice, and now you can see I'm adding on the focal panel for my card, which I cut out of the green cardstock using a stitched oval die. Adhered that down and then adhered the vellum behind that. And now I'm just sticking on some of the mini glue dots on each of the corners to make sure that vellum stays put. You cannot see the mini glue dots at all behind the vellum. So this card gave me a bit of trouble. You're going to see I change up this sentiment a couple of times. So I went ahead and cut out a couple of the eggs and a chick from the pattern paper, and I knew I wanted to pop those up on some foam adhesive above the sentiment, but I don't like the way this sentiment looks. So one, I find that pink is way too bright for the card, and I'm not loving the black ink. I find it way too stark for this card. The rest of the card is kind of full of white and soft colors, and then the black sentiment is just really harsh. So my first attempt to change this is to re-stamp it onto a different piece of paper, and I use some of the pink pattern paper that comes in the 6x6 paper pad, and I'm just making sure my little chick's feet are hanging over the sentiment there. I'm going ahead with the card. I'm laying down 3 of the tiny hearts at the top portion of the card. I'm going to add some Morning Dew to the little eggshell on the chick, and then I'm going to adhere this card base to my card. So here's where I decide to change it up, and I used white embossing powder instead, and look at the difference that makes for this card. It completely changes the entire look of the card, and I love this so much better. So here's a look at all 5 cards. Let me know if you've liked seeing me use the Scrapbook and Cards Today card kit. I want to thank them very much for sending me the card kit. I had a ton of fun playing with it, and I hope you did too. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!